Now, here we're going to summarize some of David Hume's, right, kind of his import, what's going on here in the entire, right, text. If we remember, we were talking about the transition from medieval, right, from ancient, right, philosophy to medieval philosophy to modern philosophy. The key difference was the focus on epistemology, his new focus on epistemology. That the Greeks, right, Plato, right, and Aristotle and Socrates, maybe to some degree, and the pre-Socratics, there's hints of it, very, very subtle hints on how they reason for things, right, has now come full-blown to a full-blown question. This starts with Descartes, right, and his questioning about certainty of every single belief. And we'll talk about more of that about later in the next text. But what we're looking at here then is a full-blown attempt to do epistemology from a pure, what we call empirical perspective, where you're trying to do it based it solely upon external evidence, right, and how kind of the mind operates. Combining these two concerns and what we have, therefore, right, is a philosophy or an attempt to run out the logical consequences of taking an empirical approach to knowledge and saying everything we possibly can know has to come from the senses and seeing where that leads. And as we can see, it kind of leads to a dead end with David Hume. And something else has to be brought in and supplemented with this in order to make an account that seems right, in tune with what we actually experience and what our intuitions on this matter are. That we're not just completely guessing. These aren't just emotional commitments. You don't put people on the moon, you don't put satellites up that allow telecommunications. These things just don't happen, right? If you're randomly guessing at things, you don't cure diseases, right? Not at the rate we're going. So something else has to be behind what's going on here. And humans are limited inquirers, shall we say, but not as limited perhaps as David Hume suggests. And that we can supplement this and give a further account that will then allow us to explain, right, I think more fully what we're actually experiencing. There's something else going on here. We're more tightly connected than Hume supposed, right? Something like that is what's transpiring, or we're better at guessing, or there's a similarity between us and nature. It's difficult, right, to put your hand directly on it. If we had this, we'd have a great next step in philosophy. But yes, we're trying to look at a way of coming up with that in the next text about a rough description of a process that works. It seems to allow us to effectively and efficiently achieve our goals. And the result of this, right, is that we're going farther and faster than a highly limited skepticism would allow for. Therefore, you've got to back your skepticism down to a moderate form or a highly moderated form of it to account for what we're actually experiencing. Right? These things are not corresponding if Hume is correct. So we have, so we say, direct empirical evidence that his empirical critique of philosophy is somewhat not as strong as he thought it was. But we've had plenty of time to answer and come at David Hume since then, and we've had people like Immanuel Kant and Charles Sanders Peirce working very hard on these questions, right, to try to give us an approach that can allow us to solve for these anomalies, shall we say, so far, or things we can't really quite explain fully. Yet when we manage to understand things more, perhaps we can explain these things more fully and be in a better position to account for how we know things and exactly how we claim to know things, or how we form justified beliefs and how we claim that they are justified.